Hey everyone, and welcome to Public Speaking. Today we're going to be talking about Introduction to Persuasive Speaking. So let's go ahead and get started. There are several goals of persuasive speaking. The first is to influence your audience members' values, beliefs, or actions. We want to influence our audience members to take a particular action. We want to influence their values, their beliefs, or get them to do something. We hope to strengthen their commitment to an idea. We hope to weaken their commitment to an idea, or we hope to get them to move in a specific way, to have them act in a specific manner. So, for example, if we're talking about voting, we want to influence audience members to vote. We want to strengthen their commitment to voting. We want to weaken their commitment to not voting, and we want to advocate that they do a specific action, vote on election day. Additionally, persuasive speeches use strategic discourse, so the process of selecting the arguments to support your thesis that will best achieve your rhetorical purpose, whether you inform, persuade, and entertain, in an ethical manner is an example of strategic discourse. So we're using arguments, words, and phrases that support the thesis of our argument, which is that, in this case, it's essential that everyone vote. So we should pick arguments to share that achieve this purpose, trying to get people to vote in the election. So persuasive speeches advocate for ideas of fact, something being true or false, value, they attach judgment, good, bad, moral, or immoral, or for policy. They advocate that we have action taken by organizations, institutions, or whoever you determine are members of your audience. So we want to talk to people about what's true and false. We want to play to people's value judgments, good, bad, moral, immoral, and we look for questions of policy. We want specific organizations and institutions to create policy initiatives to accomplish particular goals. So, for example, we want Congress to move towards policy and immigration reform, and that would just be one example of a policy issue. Persuasive speeches are similar to the introductions and conclusions in your informative speech. So we're going to begin by reviewing what goes into an informative introduction and what goes into an informative conclusion, and then we'll talk about what's a little bit different in this persuasive speech. So before we do that, let's just take a pause here. And when you are creating an informative speech, you probably do several things. So let's just take a look at that here together. So for an informative introduction, there are probably several things that you would do. So let's start with what goes into an informative introduction. So in an informative introduction, we have an attention grabber. So we're seeking to get the audience to be involved in what it is that we're sharing, and we want them to stimulate initial interest on the topic. And after the attention grabber, we are looking to connect with the audience and appeal to what's in it for them. What's in this speech for them? In other words, why should they care about what you are sharing with them? What information are you going to provide that's interesting to them throughout the speech? Why should they be motivated to listen to what you have to say? Then you want to deliver a thesis statement, which we've discussed is just a one-sentence statement that sums up your overall topic. So this could be, it's essential that people vote in national elections. One sentence topic, one sentence statement that conveys your overall topic. One sentence statement that conveys the overall topic. Then you want to establish your credentials. So why do you have expertise to speak on this particular topic? What makes you an expert? After this, then you're leaving with your preview, which is just today I am going to discuss main point A, main point B, and main point C. And your informative conclusion is very similar. So we're going to go ahead and look at that next. So let's talk about what goes into an informative conclusion, and then I'm going to tell you what's different in your persuasive speech here. So, what goes in an informative conclusion? Well, the first one is that you want to signal to the conclusion, saying something like, in conclusion, or as I wrap up today. The next thing you want to do is reconnect with the audience. So you want to re-appeal to what's in the speech for them, highlight why this was valuable for each person, remind them of what is valuable for them as they're listening. You want to restate your thesis. Restate thesis statement, and again, this is just you restating your one-sentence statement that conveys the overall topic. You don't need to restate your credentials, but you want to really look to reconnect to make a lasting impression. All right, so you signal to the conclusion and you want to reconnect with the audience. We're going to move the preview up. So you're going to signal to the conclusion, then you're going to review your preview. Review your preview, and so instead of saying today I am going to discuss main point A and main point B, today I discussed. Then you'll seek to reconnect with your audience, then you'll restate your thesis statement, you'll reconnect with your audience, and you'll end with a lasting impression. Don't just close. So end with a lasting impression, don't just stop talking. And we talked about several ways that you can do that. So let's go ahead and take a step back to your persuasive introduction. So in your introduction for an informative speech, you have this attention grabber, and this grabs the audience's attention and stimulates interest in the topic. And this is what you've been doing the entire time. But a persuasive introduction includes this thing that's called a hook. And the purpose of this hook is to draw attention to the problem you'll discuss. So it's really important that in your persuasive introduction that you spend time including the hook. So you'll have an attention grabber, and then after stimulating interest in the top, like gaining their attention, stimulate interest in paying attention, you want to draw attention to the problem you're going to discuss, and that's the entire function of a persuasive hook. Then you'll connect with the audience as normal, you'll deliver your thesis statement as normal, you'll discuss your credentials all as normal. And the last thing that's different is this idea of your persuasive preview. So for an informative preview, you would list it just like this. I'm going to discuss main point A, main point B, and main point C. But your persuasive preview is a bit different. So main point A in your persuasive speech is called the need section. And in this section, you discuss the problem. Main point B is called the satisfaction section. And here you discuss all the possible solutions to the problem. Now, you're not going to tell them how you want them to solve the problem in the satisfaction section. You're just going to list all the possible problems that are available. And then main point C is the visualization section. And in the visualization section, this is where you present a case for how the world would look if we did something. To solve the problem. And it also illustrates how the world would look if we did nothing. So in this section, you're presenting the best and worst case scenario. All right. So what does this mean for your persuasive preview? So for your persuasive preview, you will say something like, today I am going to discuss how not voting is a serious, you guessed it, problem. I will review possible solutions. And C, I'll discuss the best and worst case outcomes if we act and vote or if we do not vote. So, your persuasive preview doesn't just say I'm going to look at main point A, main point B, and main point C like your informative preview did. It's more specific. It previews the 3 main points, which are the problem, the solutions, and the best and worst case. So for your persuasive preview, I should hear something exactly like, today I'm going to discuss how not voting is a serious problem. I will review some possible solutions, and I'll discuss the best and worst case outcomes if we act and vote or if we do not vote. And then you would move on to your main point 1. So we've discussed what goes into an informative introduction and a persuasive introduction, and we've discussed what goes into an informative conclusion. So now let's take a look at the persuasive conclusion. So in terms of the persuasive conclusion, you're still going to signal to the conclusion. You're still going to review your preview, but you're going to review your preview in the similar manner that you just had it delivered. So when you get to this idea, review your preview, instead of like the informative way, today I discussed main point A, main point B, and main point C, the persuasive review of preview sounds something like this. Today I discussed. Today I discussed how not voting is a serious problem. I reviewed possible solutions, and I discussed best and worst case outcomes if we do and if we don't vote. So then you'll restate your thesis statement just as you had been. So you signaled to the conclusion, you reviewed your preview, you restated your thesis statement, you're seeking to reconnect with the audience, and then end with a lasting impression. However, before you end a persuasive conclusion, the last thing you're going to do is end with a call to action. So you will have a call to action, and then you'll seek to leave a lasting impression. So what do you want the audience to do? So they're listening to your speech. What specifically do you want them to do? And this should be something measurable that's possible for them to accomplish in that period of time. So let's go ahead and look at what goes into Monroe's motivated sequence. So you have an attention section and you have an action section. So the attention section is like the introduction. Then you have the need. This is main point 1. Satisfaction. This is main point 2. We just discussed what you do in the persuasive introduction. And we just discussed what you do in the persuasive conclusion. So the persuasive conclusion section is called action. The persuasive introduction is called attention. The persuasive main point 1 is the needs section, and as we examined in the earlier slide, this is where you present all possible problems. Like an argument, as a lawyer, you're presenting ideas why this particular issue is problematic and needs to be resolved. In the satisfaction section, this is where you present all possible solutions. You're not just presenting all the possible solutions that you have ideas about. It can be your ideas and ideas that are actually working that you want people to get on board and participate in. In addition to presenting all possible solutions, in the satisfaction section, you have to provide this thing called a reputational message. Now, this allows the people in the audience who don't agree with you to also participate in your speech. So there's always going to be someone in the audience who's listening and thinking, that solution will never work. Or they may be thinking, that seems impossible. So it's for this reason that we provide a two-sided reputational message. And in this message, you're going to acknowledge your critics' arguments, and then you're going to refute them with evidence from your side. So you might say something like, most people believe it's impossible to stop world hunger. However, we can do these actions 1, 2, and 3, which will work to stop world hunger together. And you'll discuss how those actions would actually help solve the problem that other people said was impossible. And your point in doing this is to demonstrate that it's not impossible at all. Then you'll move on to main point 3, which is your visualization section. And here, you're going to be talking about the best and worst case scenario if we choose to act, or what will happen if we do nothing. In this section, you can present 3 best case scenarios for acting. You can present 3 worst case scenarios if we do nothing. Or you could present a best case scenario, a worst case scenario, a best case scenario, and then a worst case scenario. It's your choice how you want to organize this third main point. And then you'll move on to the action section, which, as we mentioned before, is like the persuasive conclusion section. So this is what Monroe's motivated sequence is. What I'd like you to do now is go ahead and pull out the document I asked you to print, which is the Introduction to Monroe's document, and print it out so that you have it in front of you. It looks like an outline of the persuasive speech sequence right here from Monroe's motivated sequence. And then after you've printed it out, I want you to listen to the Introduction to Monroe's motivated sequence, which is the description about each part of the persuasive speech outline that I've posted for you online. This video is about 6 minutes long, and it will go into detail further regarding each of the individual sections of Monroe's motivated sequence and what you should do in each section to be effective in your public speaking for persuasion. So today we talked about the goals of persuasive speaking, to influence audience members, to strengthen their commitment, to weaken their commitment, or advocate for a specific action like voting. And we talked about how it's important to use information as arguments to present a case for why people should do something and why a particular problem should be resolved. So I will see you in class. Have a great day.